All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Friday Mastermind. It's not just another Friday Mastermind. It is the first Friday of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a kick-ass, awesome New Year celebration. I know a lot of folks, Deb X included, like wanted to put 2023 in the rearview mirror. Uh,
Yes.
we did put it in the rearview mirror, right? Like it's ready for a new year,
That
Deb?
that would be a hell yes.
Right on, right on. We've got a first-time special guest. I'll introduce him formally in just a minute. I just wanted to say hi to Todd. Happy New Year, Mr. Bookspan.
Happy New Year to you, the whole Trust Engine, plug and play SM, win by noon communities. It's exciting. I not that it was an over the top year from a business perspective, but personal perspective, my 2023 was awesome. Lots of time away with family and friends. But I'm excited to make 2024 better. And sorry, Deb, that you didn't have the year of a lifetime.
There were some positives. Remember, we took 4 family vacations. That was the first time ever for our family to go on vacation. So that was thanks to Utah. So there were lots of wins of 2023. I'm just also ready to kick ass in 2024.
Right on. Well, let's go, everyone. And I wanted to make this the first one because I passionately believe that loan officers that are data-driven mortgage advisors own the future, and they will continue to gain market share this year. You know, one of my favorite interviews last year was with Daniel Saw, and one, because it was the first time I interviewed him, and I knew he was successful. I knew he kicked ass with MortgageCoach. I didn't realize that he had become, him and his team had become the #1 market leader in Columbus, Ohio, beating out Rocket and Huntington Bank. And they had a great year. Like Daniel closed the year at about 350 loans, and had a year of gaining market share, and has built a division that has about 40 loan officers, and ended the year with 40 loan officers that average 5 loans per month per loan officer, which, guys, that is, not a common thing in the industry. So if you watch those interviews I did with Daniel, which we'll put links down below, highly recommend you do, you'll have had a little cameo experience from Alex Thompson, who's our special guest today. He is the vice president of sales for, is it the Daniel Saw Group or is it NFM? Like, what is VP of sales of?
VP of sales of our division. So it's the Great Lakes division of NFM Lending.
Okay, cool. And
Yep.
well, first of all, I have a few more things I want to say about you, but why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, because it's the first time where you are the special guest, and just tell a little bit about what you do, what your role is, and how you describe your division.
Certainly. So Alex Thompson, I've been in the industry since 2007, which we'll talk about more, I'm sure. Great year to join, right? And so my role, VP of Sales, is I oversee all of the loan officers, their teams. My day-to-day is spent helping them grow. Our main focus is being able to get them out there, coach them on being able to get more relationships, more leads, and be able to convert those leads at a higher level, and be able to, basically build their brand. I think that's one thing that our division has been a big focus on since we formed, was how can we help our sales staff build their brand into something that something they're proud of, basically build a business within a business for each of them. So,
yeah, well, you guys you're doing a great job, and just some interesting metrics. So NFM did a study on their loan officers that use MortgageCoach versus the loan officers that don't. And the loan officers that do use MortgageCoach at NFM, which I think there's like 91 that do, and there's, a couple hundred that don't, they convert 10% higher than the average.
Mm-hmm.
And they were 65 basis points more profitable, because they have less exceptions. In Daniel's group, like, we kind of like peeled back the onion and said, okay, now how does Daniel's group perform? And there was like another 10% improvement in conversion. And there was, and they were like 20 basis points better than all the other mortgage coaches. So like, clearly, the data speaks for itself. Market share leader, 6 loans per loan officer, more profitable, better conversion. And my thesis is it comes down to leadership. I interviewed Daniel on that. So we have, like what Daniel's bringing to the table, but then there's you and the leadership you bring. So, and my goal is that people that are listening to this, their branch managers, their heads of production, they're going to just hear how you're bringing leadership and what some of the rhythms are that, drive that success. So why don't you kind of share what's most important and how are you guys doing that?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about with MortgageCoach and then overall. But one thing I'll tell a little story about MortgageCoach. We started utilizing this about 8 years ago. We had access to it, but we were getting shopped pretty heavily. So we noticed our concessions were at a number that we didn't want them to be. Let's just put it that way. I won't even tell the number. And then we made a focus, Daniel and I, with at that time, it was just his individual production, not even other loan officers, of using MortgageCoach. And we made a strategic way we went about it, of how we present it and when we present it. And all of a sudden we saw our concessions go in half, cut in half within about 2 months, that quick.
Wow.
And we saw our conversion rates going through the roof. So what we basically did at that point was we said, we are going to do a TCA at pre-approval and a TCA in contract. We're going to do 2 meetings with the TCAs where we're reviewing them. And basically what we learned is if we did that at pre-approval, we basically, once they went into contract, the consumer, the client was more just thinking to themselves, what route or option do I want to go with? Not what lender do I want to choose? Start shopping. They already made that decision at the pre-approval. And then the in contract TCA was more of a formality of finalizing those numbers, just buttoning up what everything's going to look like. And so one thing that we learned too is, scalability is one thing that everyone's trying to look and do. And so we really then broke down the TCAs and how we present them and what we do with them. And then started teaching that to loan officers and kind of came up with a process of how we educate them and how we train them on that. And we have a multiple day training within their first week on TCA and MortgageCoach, mixed with everything else we're training them on. And we spend a lot of time. We have a 2-week, very in-depth process when we onboard a loan officer of our training, how we go through, it can be our calls that we have with agents, referral sources, obviously encompass things like that. And we also then have a team that will help that loan officer, especially for the first 2 weeks with their leads, with their contracts and everything, to be able to help them take care of those clients and everything so they can focus on our trainings. A lot of times when loan officers come on board, we notice they will spend more of their time worried about the lead they're getting, the contract they're getting, and not focused on the systems or the processes that we're trying to train out. So that team kind of takes that over for the first couple of weeks and then is there to work with them for 1 month, 2 months until they really feel like they're up and running. And building out that process has been really successful for them.
Did I hear that you dedicate 2 days of training for MortgageCoach as within the 3 days. 3 days of MortgageCoach training within the first month of a loan officer joining your branch or your division?
It's technically within the first 2 weeks. So it's within 3 days, it's back to back to back though. So usually we have it, like I said, it's very detailed and process driven, but it's that Thursday, Friday of the first week, and then the following Monday is the third training typically.
Right on. Well, I definitely want to unpack what are you doing in those 3 days, and then for anyone listening to this, just hear like the success. Market share leader, leads the company in low concessions, leads the company in conversion, and they're putting that kind of priority and importance into creating a culture of advisors, mortgage coaches. Todd or Deborah, anything you want to ask or say to what he said so far?
Quick question, Alex, on the strategy that you're using on the pre-approval TCA. I think loan officers are hesitant at a pre-approval to issue a TCA because they're worried that their clients are going to go out and shop rates. So is there a specific strategy that you're teaching to your loan officers of how to set that up?
There is, and that's something we'll cover. There is a specific strategy. So it's not just specifically with the TCA. So the TCA is a part of our whole pre-approval consultation. And there's a lot of steps that we use. Our goal with it is to educate the consumer on what's going on, not just within what their options are. Like we want to educate them what's available to you, but educate them on the market, what's going on. And we're dominant here in Central Ohio, and a lot of our clients are in Central Ohio. Talk about what's going on in Central Ohio. Educate them a little bit about what is going on in the industry, rates, things. We don't shy away from the term rate, and especially at pre-approval, because it's, I think, really good to tackle the elephant in the room right away. And that is, I think, been a big success why we do see, not being afraid to talk about certain things at pre-approval, why we've seen a high conversion rate with it.
Love that.
Well, let's get into detail in the second half. I want to go high level, get strategies. Deborah, anything you want to ask or call out so far?
No, I just want to echo the fact that you on the pre-purchase meeting, you're basically scratching the itch for them, because they're likely thinking of rates. And so educating them on how interest rates work, or just, going a little bit deeper into that conversation instead of avoiding it psychologically, it's almost like you're removing the need for them to shop, because they feel like either you're doing the shopping for them, or now they have more understanding that one small detail can make a big difference in your conversion over time. So I just wanted, to reemphasize that concept and what it's doing likely psychologically to the consumer. So good job.
Appreciate that.
Well,
it is helping.
Well, the main topic, and we're going to spend most of our time in this call, is, how to turn a loan officer into a mortgage coach, which is a data-driven mortgage advisor. They're calling on their alerts from Sales Boomerang, which you guys do really well. And then when they do help a consumer, they're taking them through a best practice advice experience with Mortgage Coach. What are, if you had a list and just think of the results that you have and the things that, you're creating culture around, what else besides Mortgage Coach do you think is foundational to the success that you guys have? Just give us that kind of a high level checklist, and then we'll really spend the time breaking down, okay, how are you creating this adoption with Mortgage Coach?
Yeah, so I think some of the successes too, one of them is everything's a process for us. Everything is coaching. So one thing that we do is weekly, we have multiple training meetings with our loan officers. On Monday, we have our typical, we call it our LO meeting, but really what we're talking about are the wins that we've had from the previous week. And we'll have some of our high performers talk about strategies that they use to win, right? Whatever that looks like. Obviously I could share more if anyone wants to call, but how did they convert an offer? Did they talk to agents? Did they talk to the borrower? And then we'll also talk, about other strategies, maybe different products that we are releasing or things on that call. And we are very engaged. We call out, LOs, we get them to talk. And so everyone's engaged, everyone's learning, and that's a way that we can pass on information and tactics quickly, and then being able to utilize it right away. Another tactic is, with, again, the process, everything we built out is how we go about converting relationships and realtor relationships, right? And what is a proven method of how to get that meeting with a referral agent, such as a realtor. That's pretty much what we're all in with retail. And then once you have that meeting, what is a great process and steps for what that meeting should look like, right? Obviously, every meeting is going to be a little bit different. Your goal is to build a relationship, but there still needs to be a process of certain things that you want to cover, certain things that you want to show them that you're able to help them with, and then being able to get that first lead. When it comes to having a relationship, meeting with a realtor or things like that, the goal is to get that first lead, show them what you can do. And so having that process as well has been really helpful. And then it's kind of like baseball. I don't know if you guys are baseball fans, but they track everything in baseball. We track everything as well. We have CRM that we use for all the leads, the Encompass, so that makes it very easy for the LO ourselves to track what their conversion rates are, what referral sources are they performing with, what referral sources are they underperforming with. And so they give all that data in front of them to be able to give them the tools to win.
Love that. I love that you brought up the baseball metaphor. One of the top 10, one of the top 12 videos of 2023. I think you probably know this because I think I forwarded it to Daniel. And, first of all, Daniel made the list. He's right here. Well, look at who's that guy. It looks like you and Daniel made the list.
I'm going to tell him it's because of me. I'm telling him that right now. So it's fine.
No, you were absolutely a from this. And look what also made the list. Moneyball Mortgage, right out of baseball. And anybody who has, well, first of all, whether you've watched the movie already, rewatch it. Like, it is time for Moneyball Mortgage in the mortgage industry. And I was kind of writing down as you were talking what I hear as some of the foundations to your success. And it started with, you guys are data driven. Did you hear, like, hey, 6 years ago, concessions weren't great, conversions weren't great, we applied the strategy. 2 months later, we measured it. And remember, 6 years ago, they were obsessing over conversion and concessions. And if you listen to that Moneyball interview, that's the difference between tier 1 loan officers that are highly profitable and tier 3 loan officers, bottom tier, that are highly unprofitable on a per loan basis. So you guys, for 6 years, you've been data driven. You've heard him use the word process how many times so far? They're process driven. You heard him talk, like when I asked him, what do you do that's driving all that success? And he's like, multiple days of training every week. How many days do you guys train per week?
Typically 2. So
2. So
and Mondays are our big days. We have 2 meetings. So
got it. And then I also heard, and I've observed, they got you're a VP of sales, you're being resourced to help, your 40 loan officers be successful. So the right resources of leadership and the right allocation of time at leadership to do 2 quality trainings per week to make sure that when you bring a new loan officer in, did you hear, like, oh, we do 2 weeks of training? So real quick, what are some of the other things that you train in those 2 weeks? Obviously, 3 of the days are MortgageCoach, which leaves 5 + 2, 7 other days. What are you guys doing in the 7 other days of bringing on loan officers into your platform?
really good question. So strategic tactics on being able to convert referral sources, those agents. So we actually are coaching on what to do during those meetings, what to do on the phone calls, the process of how you track, what referral sources are you calling to try to get meetings with, right? So it's a couple of days learning that and doing a lot of scripting. We're really big on scripting. I think scripting is really important because there's a couple of things to it. One, what you say is really important, and how you say it is even more important. And then 2, I think it just gets the mindset right on our floor, out there in the bullpen, which is so much fun to walk out there and hearing them talk. But typically every morning they are doing scripting, and it gets their mind in the right place, right? It gets you whatever morning or night you had before, it gets you right into the groove. And then other things that they're typically covering is, it's really some of our systems too. It's kind of bulletproof of, when you get a lead that comes in, how it's input, and then it's very difficult to overlook that lead. There's so many systems of, how you call, how you update referral source, being able to, notify everyone the same exact way. One thing that we've learned is with referral sources, if you start giving them updates and you give them updates a different way the update is given every time. So if the email, the header is different every single time, or if you're texting one time and then emailing another, it gets too confusing for them. So you want to keep it the same way, systematic, every time you're giving updates to your referral sources, so that it's easy for them to know what's going on. So that's another
I took away what you're doing during those 7 days is you're teaching the best practices to execute on the key strategies that drive your success. So 2 full weeks, 3 days of that, so out of 10 days, 30% of that is dedicated to teaching them on how to be an advisor, how to go from I'm a loan officer to a mortgage coach, which is we're going to transition in a minute and just focus on that for the rest of the call. But I hope everybody is taking notes, every branch manager. Like, guys, this is it. This is the key to the kingdom. You want to create a branch or a division or a company that's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It just gets better and better and better and better. It's be data driven, know what your conversion is, know what your concessions are, be process driven, make sure that you're training at least 2 times a week. Make sure that when you bring people into the company, you've got a, a documented best practice way of doing things. And it's not all about loan products. Like loan products and underwriting guidelines are important, but did you hear, like, he's teaching how to get a meeting with a realtor, how to win with those meetings in a realtor. Deborah and Todd, anything else you guys want to ask or call out?
One thing
go
I
ahead.
do want to chime in real quick, because I did see a message on this, is, how often do we train on scripting and everything? And so with our meetings, which I think is important when you're doing meetings with your loan officers, is every meeting that you're going to set, especially if it's weekly, you don't try to mix different topics or processes in one meeting, right? So when we have the multiple meetings, our one meeting that is how to win, it's mandatory. Every loan officer has to be on that phone call. If they're not going to be on it, they must message Daniel or I beforehand why they're not going to be, and it better be business related, meeting with a realtor, things like that. But everyone must be on it, and that's where we cover how to win, right? What did we do to win? Everyone, is giving different topics, and that's probably the most productive phone call, because in reality, like you said, learning products, being able to research products, guidelines, those things, everybody has that. What are you offering that's different? And I think that's really what's been helpful for our loan officers, learning how to convert. Maybe there's always like an aha moment or something that every loan officer gets from that. And then the second meeting is best practices. That's a different meeting. That one is a lot of our, what we call like LO launch, our newer loan officers that are either in the industry or into retail. It's required that they're on that every Monday for 6 months to learn. And that's strictly covering best practices. And we will cover the same thing sometimes in 1 month, or maybe we'll cover, realtor conversions once a month, once every other month, what we see fit. But we're covering what are the best practices, and we're covering the same things multiple times a year. It's not that it's something new and innovative. We're just making sure that we're reiterating what the best practices are. And a lot of times when we have a loan officer, maybe that they've called us and they're struggling with converting clients, converting realtors, whatever that may be, we're gonna tell them, hey, you haven't been on our best practices call. You need to be on this for the next month. And then all of a sudden you'll see their numbers start to increase. So that best practices call is, while it's not always mandatory for every LO, it's mandatory for anyone that has just joined us. And then when we see that someone maybe is slipping in some of their numbers or conversions, we'll make sure they attend that for a decent amount of time.
Data driven. When people are missing their numbers, they'll make sure they're there. Deborah, Todd, either one of you have questions, comments?
I do. That's okay, Todd. When you guys how do y'all set the meeting with the agent partners? I hear a lot of my clients, they know what to do once they have the meeting and the follow-up strategy, but it's getting an agent to actually respond and to attend a meeting. So is there anything any patterns from your crew of what's working?
Really good question. So I'll go over, I'll give you some of it that works with it. So if you're going to cold call an agent, you have to make it worth their time to talk to you, and you have to make it worth their time to want to have that meeting. I think a lot of our LOs, they've been able to get, at one point, they were able to get the phone call answered, but they weren't able to keep the meeting that they scheduled. And so it's really, you want to keep that phone call on that first, when you're scheduling the future meeting, very short and sweet. So, a lot of times what it'll be is like, hey, this is Alex Thompson with NFM Lending. I just want to actually talk to you about a couple new products that we've been able to use that's helped more clients write competitive offers and win more homes quicker with less offers. So it's a new product that we have. I just want to schedule about 5 minutes to talk to you about that. Do you have tomorrow available at 1 p.m. or do you have next Wednesday at 3 p.m.? Right. So we'll talk about a couple things that's helped either their clients win or a couple things that's helped them win, and tell them that that's what we want to discuss. And obviously we will discuss that during the meeting, but then they'll also stick to the rest of the script to be able to get that, first and second lead. But you kind of want to make that initial call short and sweet and tell them what it's going to do to help them. And then we do a lot of scripting as well with what are your rebuttals going to be? So like, oh no, I already have a great lender. Oh, I'm sure you do. Every great realtor has great lender. I'm sure our paths are going to cross at one point here in the future. So it's good to put a face with the name, especially if anything comes up maybe on the listing side. So you really know how our process has worked, and you'll feel confident with your seller. So we practice those scripting as well for what the rebuttals will be.
Great.
Cool. And let's close out with realtor strategies. Let's make sure we leave some time, because I've already seen a question from Jeff Curtis, and if you could answer it real quick. But Are your initial meetings with realtors in person at office or neutral site or over the phone?
Really good question. The goal is always to have it to be in person. That's the number one thing. We push heavy for that. Obviously, it's 2024 now, actually. So crazy to say this. But, we know that video, Zoom, things like that has become popular. The second is Zoom. And then, we'll meet on neutral sites, things like that. But most of the meetings we try to have in office. If you can get someone on your turf, your conversion rate is extremely higher.
So the bullseye is having them come to your office so they can experience, your process, your culture. At least that's your formula. Todd, anything you want to ask or say before we kind of transition into exactly how they're training on Mortgage Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you don't want to give away all your secret sauce, but could you give an example or two of a strategy that the loan officer is bringing to the realtor to show them how to close more transactions?
Really good question. So a lot of times what we're showing them is this is going to be really funny that it's tied to this. We actually have in our PDF that we're showing them Mortgage Coach, and we're showing them how that's helping their clients. And one of the things we're going to cover here afterwards is one of the ones that we use is buy now, TCA, buy now versus wait. And that actually has been a really helpful strategy to get the first lead. I don't know how many, in our market in particular, in Central Ohio, it's very competitive. I know nationally it is as well. But, especially last year, the average, I think, offer, especially in that really good price point, was 10 offers per home during the purchase season. And so all these realtors were missing out on a lot of clients that just didn't feel confident or know that they should offer competitively. And this Mortgage Coach or TCA that we will show them and how it works, and they're seeing it how the client receives it, it gets them really excited.
Love that. Well, let's make sure we cover that at some point. Anything else, Todd, that you want to make sure, or did that cover it for you?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that that's what the community needs to hear, that, I think people, especially that's such a great example of how to use a TCA strategically. I think people are used to using it to help people compare different rate and fee options and, cost over time. And so I think that's super helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. And I really want to encourage people, the first interview I did with Daniel was just exceptional. I mean, like I said, it's the first time I've interviewed him, and it became one of the top 10 videos of the year. And here you can see it about, 35 minutes into it, our man Alex came in and did a training, and he covered two TCAs. He covered the heavy rate shopper TCA and the buy now versus later. So we'll probably repeat some of that, but I just wanted to remind you guys, there's a great piece of content that is a must-watch interview for all branch managers, all loan officers, anyone that wants to optimize market share, you want to optimize conversions, you want to optimize profitability, absolute must-watch. Also, just make note that, we've got links. Any links that Alex shares today, we'll put down below in show notes. Anybody who's not already using Mortgage Coach, get a demo. You can go to our website or click here. So it's halftime now. We're right at the point of halftime through this call. Let's really focus on your processes, the steps you go through to turn a loan officer into a Mortgage Coach. Where do you want to start?
First off, what I'll start with is what our kind of training, how we structure it and everything. So what we want is a lot of people that onboard with us.
And by the way, share your screen anytime you think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Anytime you think there's something that you want to show that's relevant, it's yours to use.
Certainly. I'll do that very shortly here on it. So the one thing that we do is we want to get the buy-in. Most people have heard of Mortgage Coach that have onboarded, but they may have seen it, but they're not actually utilizing it. And so we need to get their buy-in into it. You can train them on it all you want, but if they don't see the benefit, then they're probably not going to change everything they've done for the past 5, 6, 10 years in their process. So we got to get their buy-in on it. So for the first day, typically what we're going to do is I'll kind of share my screen on kind of some notes that I had written down for myself. But the first day that we do is we cover different options. So I'm going to show them typically how I build out TCAs. And so I'll actually always build out a new one every single time. I don't use the same TCA to show them. I will actually build out really the first two, and then the third ones I always show. The first two TCAs, so they can see how I go about it. I don't go through it too quick to build it out, because I also then record it, and I will send them that recording for something that they can watch after that training, and they can watch it for however long they want to see fit. And what we typically do is we always go over, the low payment options. Those are your heavy shopper option. And typically what that's going to be is, this is really to get the client off of rate, get them away from thinking about the most important thing is the rate, and show them and educate them on the different options that are available. And this is probably the most common TCA that we use, and that everyone in our division uses. The second option that I'll typically show them from there is I'll show them the buy now, like don't wait, right? And that option, which we'll cover here in just a second, that really what the goal of that is showing them, if they want to wait until rates come down, it's actually going to cost them more based on the data that we see and what we know. And how does that cost them more? And then the third option, I just typically will use an old refinance that I had done back in, we all remember the 2020, 2021 days. And that third option is really to kind of show them that TCA and MortgageCoach should be used at every sale for every client. It's not just to be used for your heavy rate shopper. It's not just to be used for your, buy now, don't wait. It can be used for every single client, and it's to show them, to basically get them to buy in. This should be a part of your process for every lead that you get. That's the first day. And at the end of that call, or at the end of that meeting, because usually it's in person, what we'll do, I'll say, is we have a meeting tomorrow. We have homework. We're back in grade school, it feels like. We have some homework you need to work on. And then the first thing I do is I'll show them the 10 times website, how that works. And then I'll show them and send them the link for all the different strategies, the different recordings that you already have, which I believe is right here. And so I'll show them, the getting started, the intermediate, the advanced. And then I ask them, I need you to watch those, and I need you to give me 5 takeaways before our meeting that we're going to have tomorrow. And so what that does is that gets them, in my opinion, it gets them used to utilizing resources and other things, and maybe coming up with other ideas on how to use TCAs versus just the 3 that I'm showing them. We have people in our division that know MortgageCoach. They know it at a much higher level. They use it at a higher level than I'm using it on a day-to-day basis. But that's because they've taken the time to learn more about it. I'll educate them as well. There's a lot of great YouTubes out there recorded of people recording different types and making different types of TCAs. And then I'll also give them the homework that they will have 2 mortgage coaches that they have to make for me under their own codes. And it's always typically going to be the heavy shopper one, and it's going to be a conventional and FHA option. And then I will send them the recording, so that way they have the ability to be able to watch and see how to make it. And that will be their homework for that night for our next meeting. Then the second day, what we'll do is, and it's typically we will cover
real quick before we go past this and we get to the second day, I want to share my screen real quick, because I think there's something important I want everybody to anchor in. So we created this 10X page for everyone. So you could go to our website, and you saw where we had this training. He grabbed this from our training website. But guys, we made this webpage. It's called trustengine.com/10X for branch managers to do training. Like, we made this for you, Alex. And I would love it if after this call, you check it out. And if you have any feedback to improve it, I want to make this a resource for branch managers. It does have a link to sign up for MortgageCoach. Now, if you're one of our enterprise clients that's been through our 10X program, like, we make custom 10X pages for lenders, so it would have your information. But this is our 10X for all. So it's got lots of interviews from different loan officers. We're currently reorganizing this. You'll notice that Daniel, 2 of his videos are part of this 10X training. I'm gonna make it like within a week. You'll see there will only be 6 videos here, and at least one of them will be Daniel's, just because I feel like it's too much. Like, it's just too much. And I was planning to make this tab right here, how to win with realtors, and to make this tab, how to win with rate shoppers. So there's kind of like this general 10X training, and then there's 2 specific tabs. And then if you scroll down, guys, there's a playlist for all of our 10X training. There's a playbook, and then it has this training that Alex just covered. And then down below, it's got a place for them to sign up for our live training. So first of all, Alex, anything else as we not redesign it, but upgrade this? Any other suggestions that you think we should do besides put Daniel's picture somewhere up here?
I think
And
that's
your
the
picture
first thing we
too?
should do. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You know, put our pictures up there. That'll be the best thing on there. No, but I actually like what you mentioned. I think simplicity is best, and understanding like the labels of what is going to be helpful for them, so they know what they're clicking on, will make it a lot easier, and know what to watch. So I actually think your website is a great resource, and that's one thing I think a lot of we realized before I started doing the, hey, watch these, give me 5 takeaways. You know, that once I started doing that, I realized actually it was getting the buy-in even more, because then they would start using your website, going and watching some of these videos, from some of these amazing experts that are winning in this market, and utilizing it to its fullest. So that was part of the reason of getting them to do some homework on it.
Cool. So guys, just takeaway for all leaders and managers, day one is create the why, introduce resources where they can self-educate outside of the training. So you're going to be teaching and training in person, but you also want to make sure that you're teaching them resources where they can self-educate, and highly recommend you use our 10X for all webpage. If you're an enterprise client that has a 10X page, use your 10X page. Although I think the 10X for all always has value, because it's just got so many different lenders from so many different, top producers in different markets. All right, so let's jump into day 2.
Yeah, and
You
so
go
day
back and share
2,
your
what I'll
screen.
do is I'll have them start, bring their 5 takeaways. And a lot of times we are going to have multiple LOs or sales staff through the same training. And so then when they're sharing what their takeaways were, a lot of times they're talking and I'm listening, and I'm actually learning a lot from them as well. Like I said, part of this was it was kind of getting them some homework so I could learn more, see what they're actually seeing, interpreting from the website and from the TCAs. And almost every single time, some of the top takeaways they have is just that they feel, that's probably a bad way to word it, they feel stupid for not using this before, right? How simple it is, and how much it's going to impact their business. So I think the website alone, and when they do the takeaways and watch it, it gets their buy-in almost as much as what I did on day 1, which we'll cover here a little bit as well. And then I'm going to review the TCAs that they created. So I'll have each person, if I have multiple people, each person will go at once. The first person to go, it's always the ones that's the most nervous, I feel like. But I'll first review the TCA. And I think what's really important when you're looking at the TCA is you want to make sure that you're going in hard on them, right? You're looking at any little mistakes that they have or errors that they are on there, you point them out. Don't take it easy, because you want them to learn quickly, and you want them to also then let them know why that is an issue. A good example of that will be, I always feel like when you're labeling your TCAs and your different options, giving it the right label, right? If I've seen a lot of people on there will label something like a buy down option, and we'll cover that here in a minute. But I think buy down option, or talking about buying down the rate, I think that all of a sudden you're putting something in the client's mind that is going to be really hard to overcome, right? So being diligent on making sure the TCA is correct, updating it for them. And then I'll have them present to me the same way I presented to them on day 1, which, we're going to cover in a few minutes. And then you want to make sure that you're being strict on them, how they're presenting it, what they're covering. Make sure they don't say too much. I think that's the one thing that I've learned when LOs are first using the system, is they start explaining every little thing that's on the TCA. And what that does is a lot of times that confuses the client. So you want to make sure that they're hitting on the points that they need to. And really kind of coach each person, grade them, let them know where they were incorrect and where they were correct. And then after that, usually spend a couple hours on that, and then I'll give them homework for what day 3 will be. And day 3, what we typically do on day 3 is kind of what we did on.
Time out. Before we day 3, stop sharing real quick, because I want anyone on this call has questions, put them in chat. Deborah, I know, we've been texting back and forth. She's taken some pretty good notes. And Deborah, anything you want to call out at this point in the conversation?
Well, just from the teacher background in me, I love that you give them homework and then you give them a chance to perform and then you give them the feedback. So it allows a safe place where they know that that's what's the expectation. And I think everyone shares the same mindset that it's meant to improve, but it's the whole, if you don't inspect what you expect, then how do you know if it's getting done? And so I think it's great what you do for the team. And, you know, Dave, one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning was leadership, but I would say it's leadership and accountability that Alex, you provide for them weekly, monthly, quarterly, and just giving them that place to perform and then being ruthless on them with the small little details so that they can make the improvements and building in those reps where they have to actually role play and pretend like you're the client. They have, if they don't have their own leads or business to be able to put those reps in, then they don't retain as well and then they get rusty. So I think it's phenomenal what you do. And I would highly encourage for anyone who does training, how are you assessing or inspecting what you expect? You can't just show up and throw up and expect people to retain. That's not really part of the learning cycle, is to just tell. So having them demonstrate is a good way to evaluate performance and then increase performance.
Yeah, no, really good points. But by the way, did you say you guys are paying for Mortgage Coach at your branch for the loan officers?
Oh, we are. Yes.
Yeah.
We actually will pay for them.
Yeah. And what is, because there are some companies that pay, but there are a lot of companies that, you know, pass that down to the loan officer. But it's cool. I love the fact that your branch is paying for that. What was the thinking process on paying for it versus not paying for it? Just for helping other branch managers, you know, hear how you thought through that.
Yeah, it wasn't even a thought for us to even pass it on to them. And the main reason was we're, by giving them tools to win, we're ultimately winning as well. And so I think some of our success, especially with getting #1 market share in the market we're in, it's from all the tactics that we're using, and TCA is a big part of it. So if we're going to start charging them for it, then I feel like they're not seeing the value, and being able to give it to them, they're able to see the value and be able to not be able to think about, is it worth the expense to themselves? They're able to truly just see, how do I utilize this to win? It's something that's given to them. It's right in front of them. Everyone else is using it, and they don't have to compare in their mind, like, is this worth that monthly fee, that annual fee? It's taking that mindset away from them.
And I think it also empowers you to hold them accountable to using it. You know, like, hey, this is how we win here, and this is a standard, and, you know, it removes the excuses, and it also empowers you with a greater level of leadership and accountability.
You couldn't have said it better myself, or I couldn't have said it better myself, Dave, because one thing I will say is I had a conversation with a loan officer this morning who actually said he had gotten shopped on 2 deals. And so the first thing I came back on was, how was your pre-approval consultation? How was that TCA? How was the mortgage coach? And so we actually went back and looked at it, and there were some takeaways that maybe he had reverted back to old processes, old ways, and not to what we have seen that has been proven and win. And so I think that was a great coaching moment for him, is a lot of times when we get loan officers that have been with us for a while, they've been using the mortgage coach, using our processes. A lot of times they're going to resort back to old processes, or they start doing some shortcuts. This is a great way to come back and then reevaluate, saying, hey, you got shopped on 2 deals. Let's look at what you're doing at your pre-approval meeting, in particular the mortgage coach. And almost every single time it's that aha moment. Oh, I didn't do this. I should have done this. And all of a sudden you see that same conversation where I feel like I'm getting shopped. You're not having that conversation in a week or 2. They're actually converting, they're winning. So it's a great thing and a resource to come back to every time.
Love that. Todd, anything you want to say or ask before because we're rolling into the 4th quarter here?
Well, you know, I want to circle back to something that you said, Dave, earlier about price exceptions and then relationship building when you convert, right? So the way that you win a customer is by building relationship, and the way you build a relationship is by building trust. And so when you're transparent, you show a TCA and you're educating, you're furthering that trust process. And so when I hear Alex talk about the fact that they increase conversion rates by using TCAs, and then I hear you talk about the fact that there's less price exceptions, what you have to remember as a loan officer is that if your clients aren't shopping you, that's a less stressful conversation. You call that restrictive tension, right, Dave, or something like that.
Disruptive tension.
There we go. And so, you know, you're making your job easier by actually taking extra time and educating them. And then from a branch manager perspective, when you can lower price exceptions, you know, I can remember my business partner who runs our team last year had a meeting with corporate, and they were sort of shocked at the fact that the branch had the lowest price exceptions. I don't know if it was in the state or the region or whatever it was. But ultimately, you know, it came down to the fact that we use TCAs as a team on every transaction as well. And so I think that you guys continue to prove that. So if you're a loan officer, think about that, not necessarily from the, you know, you may not care about price exceptions as much, but think about it from the ease of the sale process. And then if you build a better relationship, guess who they're going to call when it comes time to refinance, when they get their loan servicer calling them, asking them to refinance, or some other loan officer calling them, asking to refinance, they're going to remember you because you built that relationship. So I just want to highlight that because I think it's a really important piece.
And just an important piece of data for anyone listening to what Todd just said, the Baker Bookspan team has averaged over 400 loans a year for a decade. You know, they didn't get 400 loans last year, but they average. I mean, it's one of the most consistently high performing teams in America, and also one of the most profitable teams. And, you know, one of the ways I met Todd, you know, 2 decades ago is because he was the poster child in Mortgage Coach community of consistently doing annual reviews, consistently using Mortgage Coach, and consistently doing annual reviews for clients. So, guys, success leaves clues. You know, you want to optimize conversion, you want to optimize, you know, profitability. You want to be a leader in the market you serve. Be a Mortgage Coach, and if you're a manager or leader, do everything that you hear doing today. So we're in the fourth quarter. We got another, you know, 13 minutes. Although, Alex, I could tell that I'm going to want to do another interview with you if you're game. One of the things I thought might be cool is in a week or two to like literally have you lead a training, you know, for me to invite one of our actual trainers. And it would be almost like, you know, like you leading a training for anyone that wants to come to the call. I don't know if you'd be game with that, but I'm going to invite you to do that. Okay, cool. So
I'll
stay
show up.
tuned, guys. All right. So
that's a strategy of Dave's, is to ask you like live on these, you know.
Yeah, like who's going to say no to that?
Yeah.
Well played. It is a move. It is a best
move.
practice. It's a best practice. I recommend.
But I would have said yes even off the air too. So even not being live.
And I wouldn't have asked you something that I didn't think you would say yes to off the air. So all right. So what do you want to make sure gets covered? I know we got day 3 to go. Why don't you cover day 3? And then anything else you think, like, let's get it out today with the time we have left.
So day 3 really is, I'm going to come back and kind of just share it real quick. But day 3, the main thing is we're going to kind of cover the same thing we did on day 2. On day 2, at the end of it, I'm going to give them homework. And the homework really is just to compare or create two mortgage coaches. And I actually need to change this right here to the, or 3 mortgage coaches. I apologize. It's going to be 1 lower payment, you know, the heavy shoppers, and then 2 buy now options, conventional and FHA. The reason I say conventional and FHA is really just because if anyone, I'm sure everyone's built out TCAs, everyone knows this. When you go into FHA, making sure you do the mortgage insurance correctly, the upfront MIP, things like that, it just gets everyone comfortable with where each section is. And again, the 3rd day then is mainly going to be covering the buy now versus wait option, right? And then do the same exact thing on that day that I did on day 2, which is make sure that it's done correctly. And you want to be diligent on making sure every little item is correct. And then also make sure that the way they present it is correct and give them great feedback. They really want it and they need it. I think, Dave, you mentioned something that's really important earlier, accountability. Everyone wants accountability. They may not say it, but they really appreciate it. So one things that I really want to cover real quick is what are the 2 TCAs, the heavy rate shopper or the really the lower payment option, and what the objective is and what it looks like. So this is one example that I have here. And as you can see, what's really important is the way I label them. I put, 1, 2, this does have 4. I actually have 4 options in here, but you want to make sure it's very easy for the client to see them. A lot of times what we'll get is if you label them incorrectly, you don't highlight it the right way, you'll notice that the client's eyes are going a lot of different places. And typically what I coach on to everyone is when I'm showing the presentation, what I'm actually going to do is I'd like to first show 2 options at a time. The reason for that is it allows the client to really see what you're trying to explain to them. Their eyes aren't going every which way. And that's one great thing about Mortgage Coach is it's live. So I can click whatever presentations, I can prepare all 4 of them. That doesn't mean I have to show all 4, but I'm ready for that meeting. I'm ready. And so I'll show when I'm doing the training, the 5% down versus the lower rate. As you notice, I didn't call this buy down. I didn't just say extra fees, things like that. I just said lower rate. And so the big thing that I'm gonna hit on here is the payment difference, right? With the 5% down right now, we'd be looking at $32.25 for the payment with about $23,500 due at closing. You notice that includes your down payment. That's everything. Your down payment, the difference between the purchase price and the loan amount, that's $20,000. Option 2 that we can look at is just going to be a little bit lower rate, but typically when you have a lower rate, what that means is you're going to have a little bit more due at closing. So as you can see, that's a $220 a month savings. That's a lot, but you are bringing about a little over $6,000 more at closing. And while that may make sense for you, it's just something I want to talk about. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about that point of, what that looks like, that, it's a little bit more fees, things along those lines. I'll talk about the break even. That break even is about 30 months. And I'll explain to them what the break even means. That means that extra $6,600 you're bringing to closing, it's going to take 30 months of saving $220 a month before you see a recoup on that extra money that you brought to closing. So that means if you sell the home, you refinance or anything before those 30 months, you never even get to recoup. Afterwards, that's just money in your pocket. And then what we always show them is we will show them the refi, and we'll show them what the refinance looks like. The reason that's important, we've all heard, rates are hopefully on the downward move. But we always talk about a refi pledge that we do for clients, which is for 5 years to refinance that we'll do for them. And we'll show them what that refinance looks like. What's really important on this refinance, as you can see, is I kept the loan amount the same. I keep the cash to closing to 0. The reason I do that is just because I want it to be a true apples to apples comparison and talk about what's going on in the market, what the national trends are, and we'll show them what their payment could look like at a refinance here, and show them that that's a significant difference. It's a $400 savings. The reason for that is, if they're going to refinance soon, maybe it doesn't make sense for them to bring that extra money to closing. The one thing that's really important that we talk about is between the first 2 options here, it doesn't matter what option they choose. We just want to make sure that they're making the best decision for them and their family. And what's interesting, a lot of times when we show the higher cash to closing, clients want that. They want the option. We're not afraid to talk to them about, the interest rate being lower for more funds at closing. And so the other option then that we show which is one of our, I think one of the most beneficial options we can show clients, especially when we start talking about this to realtors. I think you mentioned something that was really, really important there, Todd, is what's one thing that we cover with realtors is the buy now option. And so that is this option right here. And so typically what we do, I'm actually going to come on here and do exactly what we talked about before. I'm just going to show the first 2 options here is the buy now versus wait until rates come down. The most common thing we get with clients, the most common thing realtors get is I'm going to wait until rates come down. Well, that's great. Here's the one thing that's gonna happen when rates come down is more buyers like you are going to enter the market. And when there's more buyers, do you think that same home you're looking at is going to sell for the same price, or do you think it's going to sell for more? And we get the client to answer that question. Well, it's going to sell for more because you have more people looking at the same home. You have more demand. And so what we've seen on average is the more people entering the market, typically you're going to see a 10% increase in price when the rates come down. So what we'll show them on this buy now versus wait till rates come down is we'll show them that same home is going to cost about 10% more. That $400,000 home is now going to be about $440,000. So while you are saving $180 a month if you wait until rates come down, you also paid an extra $40,000 for that home. What a lot of clients are doing right now is they're taking this opportunity when rates are at a little bit higher amount and they have less competition. They're taking that opportunity to go in contract now. What's the old saying we hear everyone say? Date the rate, marry the home. They're dating that rate, and then they're going to marry that home. And then what they will do is they will buy the home now, and then when the rates come down, they will just refinance, and we'll show them what that refi looks like. Same exact rate as what it will be when the rates come down, but look how much cheaper that payment is. That payment is actually over $220 less a month than if they wait to purchase. So it's really important we kind of show these to the client. You know, we show this to the LO. They get bought in on this. They get really excited to see this.
Just core training. I mean, every loan officer that wants to optimize their success in this market needs to know these strategies, because every consumer is price sensitive and rate sensitive. And when you go through the process that they did, it's gonna make the customer less price sensitive and realize that, hey, you know what, I can refinance. And you're teaching them about how points work in a way that's constructive. And then everybody buying a home in the market today is like, hey, should I buy now or wait? And so I can only imagine, you know, what realtors think of this. I do want to call out, Deborah shared a video of her sister. It's called How to Blow the Minds of Realtors, Leveraging the TCA. There's a link to that. I think it was 2 years ago, and it was one of the top, I think it was the fifth most watched video in 2021. I'm just going from memory, but it's a must watch. It's like 5 minutes. And she talks about how she shows up to realtor meetings with, I can't remember if it was 3 or 5. How many different TCAs, Deb, does
It was
Denise?
3, and this was when you're with a group of realtors, like a
Yeah.
big, like a room of 30. She does this every time.
Do you, like, if you guys were going to do some type of a training with a group of realtors, how many TCAs, or, you know, would you bring, you know, strategies and TCAs to that meeting? And if so, how many would you guys do?
She usually
Alex?
always does at least 2, sometimes 3. And she, even like she said in this video, she still to this day will print some of them out. And one of the things that Daniel said in your last webinar is, if you're not putting things in writing, you're lying. And he talked about how, you know, having the graphics to kind of prove your value, that's essentially what she's done to build her brand over time consistently, as the nerd is just showing the TCA. So she doesn't just rely on them scanning a QR code where it lives on their phone for a minute of time, but she also goes the extra mile to print a few of the slides so that they have it, and it could be, you know, in front of them as an anchor for when they do go back to their office of like, oh yeah, I need to send my next deal, you know, to her because of the wow factor of the TCA. So regardless if she has me coming in to speak, she always leaves enough room at the end for like the close of any big mastermind that she anchors it with strategies that are winning right now, is usually the ones that she picks. And she has them printed and she gives her little spiel about it.
And by the way, guys, she's killed it last year. How much production did Denise Donahue do last year?
You know, I don't know. I need to go look.
I know
Hold
she
on.
was, I know it was over 100 million. I know she was the #1 loan
Yes.
officer at Benchmark.
Yes.
So highly successful. Real quick, Alex, how about you guys when you go to realtor trainings or meetings? How many TCAs do you bring, and
We
you know
typically
what
just
ones?
bring, we typically will just bring this one. And the main reason
The
for
buy
that is
now, the why buy now.
the buy now. Yep. So I'm sorry. Yeah, the buy now. Why not wait? And I'm going to share a couple strategies on that really quick. But the first strategy on that in particular is, that's the last thing a lot of times we'll cover. And in particular, most realtors are going to look at this and be like, wow, this would be really helpful for my clients. And one thing we coach on asking is, was this helpful? Do you think this would be helpful for any of your clients? Do you have anyone right now that is actively looking that this would help them be able to get into contract with? And then that typically that question will always yield at least one lead, because they always have someone in their mind that they ran into this issue. They weren't willing to be competitive and they've lost out on deals, or they're waiting.
So how about we do the training that we schedule? I'm going to invite one of our trainer, and it's how to do a buy down TCA. And if we have time, we'll do the buy now and refi later TCA, just because I think both of those optimize purchase power. And then we'll not only talk about how to deliver those to a borrower, but how to use those at a realtor meeting. You game on for that?
I am. I have 2 quick things I want to share. The other thing that was really helpful is, a lot of times with new realtors, what a lot of LOs have done is they invite them to that pre-approval meeting. So either if it's Zoom over the phone or video, they'll invite them to it, or if it's in person, they'll invite them and to sit in on that meeting. And that is really helpful for being able to deepen that relationship, so they can actually see how much value we are adding with our mortgage coach, with our pre-approval meeting. So that's one big takeaway I'd always give is don't be afraid to invite your realtor to some of those meetings so they can actually see what it is that you're covering. It's how it's helping them. The other big thing is to get clients excited for the TCA. We do have a quick process I want to share that I think could be helpful for everyone. Is too many people try to make the initial phone call and lead they get from a client the only conversation they have at pre-approval. And typically what we do is we coach out is, all right, so hey, what we're going to do really quick is we're going to gather some basic information to make sure everything's safe and secure for you for that time to purchase. But what we want to do is we also want to be able to go over some different options to be able to help you win and some different options so that you feel informed when you go to make an offer. That is a meeting what we like to do for our pre-approval consultation. That typically takes 30 minutes, and we're going to want to schedule that after this phone call where we gather some of that basic information. Do you have later today at 3 p.m. or do you have tomorrow at 2 p.m. available? So the reason I mention this, it's really helpful because when you're gathering all that information, when you're doing to see if they even qualify, you should do an information grab on one call. You shouldn't be able to combine everything and then schedule that pre-approval consultation afterwards. Get them excited. Tell them how that's going to help them win, what it's going to do for them. So that way you have time to prepare for it and you can make it very informative. You're not doing it on the fly.
Love this call. So let's go into wrap up mode. Mr. Bookspan, why don't you do a win by noon, taking action wrap up?
Perfect. I'll keep it short, but the bottom line is this, right? You heard Alex walk through a TCA in a way that may or may not be better than the way that you're walking your clients through TCAs. And that's because he's got lots of reps. If you don't have enough reps, start practicing. Build the TCAs. That's practice homework number one. And then number two is have conversations with people about it, whether that's someone else in your office, whether that's your significant other, your children, your dog, but walk through it a lot so that you can sound that good when you're having those conversations. And I love that last bit of advice, which is you don't need to knock it all out in one conversation, right? Create that excitement and have the other one. That was awesome. It was great meeting you, Alex, and having you on there. Deborah, any last words from you?
Just a reminder, I know Dave has mentioned this before too, but if you're a newer LO, don't be scared to ask if you can practice on your friends. Like maybe you have some friends that are still renting, or maybe some of your parents' friends who own homes. You can say you're trying to sharpen the saw and you need, some people to practice on, and who knows, maybe you'll convert them. So.
And great ideas, great feedback. And so I made this call with the intention that it would help a branch manager, it'd help a regional leader turn loan officers into mortgage coaches at scale, and doing that at scale. And, my last point before I wrap it up, I made a LinkedIn post today. Actually, I was going to share it on LinkedIn, but it just went away. It's also in our Facebook group. So I just shared this in our Facebook group. But this was a post 2 days ago on Facebook from Sean Sandfield. And I'm going to read it to you because this is important, guys. Like we're coming out of a very difficult time in the mortgage industry, and 2024 is a new year. And this was the post. I can say without hesitation that the activity of educating homeowners using Mortgage Coach is not only the most effective, it's the most fulfilling part of my job and responsibility. So here's the deal, guys. Like loan officers that are having a Mortgage Coach conversation with consumers are winning more, they're more efficient, they're more effective, but they also have a better job. Like their experience, the conversations they're having with the consumer has gone from transactional to transformational. And so there's never been a more important time, there's never been a better time than January. We got the January effects going. Everybody's in the gym. Let's open up the Trust Engine Mortgage Coach gym as a branch manager, as a regional leader, and upgrade your loan officers so that as we move into the season, they are like data-driven mortgage advisors. Alex, one more thing I'd love for you to come to the next training with is just anything you do, because you guys also have great utilization of Sales Boomerang and our data services at Trust Engine. So I would love any training that you do in order to have, exceptional results with turning data into dollars. Is that cool?
I like it.
All right, man. Well, hey, you made Daniel and your team, the 40 loan officers that you serve, proud. Thank you very much. And I I can't wait to getting to know you better, and can't wait for our next conversation.
Thank you. Thank you all. I really appreciate it.
All right. This is a wrap. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Alex.
Thanks, guys.